Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted chats with some of the most interesting culinary voices in the American South. This region is one of the country's vacation and retirement playgrounds. But beyond the warm weather and beautiful scenery, there's a rich culture steeped in community and often dark and complicated history, and plenty of innovation among the tradition. I'm Stephanie Burt, and I've spent a career covering this region for magazines, newspapers, and websites. And to me, the best introduction to the American South is through its food culture and the growers and makers who make it delicious. I invite you to come on the road with me from the Appalachian Mountains to the clear waters of the Gulf of Mexico and everywhere in between. I'm always hungry for that next bite, thirsty for the next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. Before we get started today, I just wanted to pop in here. I wanted to let you know about something that I'm very, very excited about when it comes to the Southern Fork, and that is a new experience division of the Southern Fork. This is going to be travel itineraries. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, and it's happening very fast. I'm so excited. So there's already things that have happened in the past week since I mentioned it on Nico's podcast. So the best way to keep up with this is, one, I really think you should subscribe to the newsletter, and you can go to thesouthernfork.com, and there is a great way, a little form to sign up. That'll give you information. I write a monthly newsletter telling you kind of where episode updates, where my bylines are being published, and anything definitely that is coming on the experience front. But we're going to have some pop-ups coming down the pike, and I'm going to be traveling to different cities and hopefully seeing some of you. So please go to thesouthernfork.com experience. The first is the Southern Fork Experience Charleston. So if you have any plans, any glimmers on the edge of your brain that you might want to visit Charleston, please come and join me. This is a very exclusive itinerary, and everybody that I am working with, all the culinary storytellers, have been part of a Southern Fork podcast. And so this really is my culinary home base brought to life, and it is going to be like no other excursion, no other tour that you could get for Charleston. So please keep that in mind. That's coming the first week in October of this year. So please click on thesouthernfork.com/experience to learn more. Now, on with the show. Augusta Road in West Columbia, South Carolina, isn't a storybook setting. Strip malls are lined up down the road, flanking a Wal-Mart and a sprawling, old-school U-Haul campus. But just keep going and turn off the road at the Aldi, and there's a summer camp-style building tucked in some trees that has a modest barbecue sign. That's when you know you've reached the city limits. City Limits BBQ, to be exact. Owner and pitmaster Robbie Robinson grew up in nearby Red Bank, South Carolina, eating his fill of South Carolina Midlands BBQ. While living in Houston in the early 2000s, he acquired his first Texas-style offset wood smoker and began his journey to unlock the subtle mysteries of smoking meats. He's been serving the people of West Columbia for 8 years, including the last year in this building on the edge of town, and now it's a town that he's representing this year as a James Beard Foundation finalist for Best Chef Southeast. Every time we visit, we end up at the Smokers where we get down to the business of conversation. And I invariably mispronounce chicharrons, which you'll hear here. I'm working on it. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Robbie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for feeding me well.
You're welcome.
Here in Columbia, South Carolina. And I basically had a contingent of people that kept saying, have you been to City Limits? Have you been to City Limits? Steph, you got to go to City Limits. And I came and had the biggest chicharrones that I have ever had in my entire life. I love them. But I couldn't even begin to eat that thing. And then I took it home and it lived in my fridge for like a week. Finally, I was like, I have to just move this on. I have to get rid of it. I would take little bites of it like it was a Christmas candy. But, we're sitting here in a building that is been a few things. How did you find this building? I remember you told me it was pretty serendipitous.
Yes, my office is down the street. Drove by this place all the time. There was a restaurant in here before. I saw that they had some issues. And having looked for a brick and mortar for literally years and just it not working out, I was beyond gung-ho. That day when I saw they were having problems, I spoke to the owner. Next thing I know, we got a handshake deal. And it is so eclectic. It is awesome. And I'm thankful that none of those other places worked out.
Well, it is a classic barbecue joint because you just got a sign. You're getting all cityfied here on the City Limits now.
That sign was unauthorized, by the way. My brother started to put it up and sent me a message. Hey, I'm putting up the sign, and I'm on the other side of town, and I'm bolting over as I go. Oh my gosh! Oh no! I thought we had a good thing going without a sign, but so anyway, I was afraid of it actually being a perfect sign, and one day I'll point out all kinds of little things about it. And you're like, okay, that's a City Limit sign.
It's a City Limit sign. It's great. So I think a lot of people don't think about the modern barbecue restaurant. Barbecue restaurants in general were side hustles for people that had other primary occupations. And that means that for the most part in the South, in the history barbecue in the South, and I include Texas because it's my show. So, that barbecue restaurants were really only open a couple days a week when the people could cook the whole hog or cook the brisket or smoke the ribs and then serve it. So lots of times it was on the weekends, and that's the way City Limits is right now too, right?
Yep.
This is still, despite the James Beard nomination, your side hustle.
Yes. Even though it takes up 98% of my time, it is still my side hustle.
So when did you fall down the barbecue rabbit hole? You were in Red Bank, South Carolina, then moved to Texas
moved to Houston.
Moved to Houston, the home of Chris Shepard, I'd like to call out, who I love and is a wonderful part of the Southern Fork family. Knows his way around a plate of barbecue or two. But then when did you start making barbecue? It was out in Texas, right?
Yes. So having been a Lexington County guy, moved out to Texas. Every time we would go out to eat, if there was barbecue on the menu, I would get the barbecue, which around here is pork barbecue. And so I'd order the pork barbecue in Texas. It really wasn't that good. And like with a lot of things, I said, well, I'm going to figure out how to cook it myself. And so that's how I actually bought my first offset smoker, was when I was in Houston, 2005-ish. And I told myself, like, I'm going to figure out how to cook this. And never figured out how to cook it up until, recently. But the whole time I was out there, terrible food. And we ultimately moved back here, and I kind of dropped it because I was back home and I had easy access to the barbecue that I grew up eating. So the irony is that I was in Texas, and where I'm at now with the Texas barbecue joint, but in Texas, it started out as me trying to figure out how to cook South Carolina barbecue.
Exactly. So then you come back home and you start making Texas barbecue. So what is the first Texas style barbecue that you felt like, okay, I'm onto something here? Beef
rib. Having never had it, when I decided to do this in the summer of 2015, I saw it. There's tons of layers to the onion here, but one of the things is that I saw it on TV and it looked phenomenal. I had never tasted it though.
They're big.
Yes.
And beef, I mean, you don't think about it because we think ribs, like baby back rib, right?
Yes.
But I mean, like a beef rib, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's a cow.
Yes. And the modern Texas dino bone beef rib was not available at retail butcher shops in South Carolina back in 2015. So I actually had to get a smaller beef rib, but I threw it in my little cheap Lowe's vertical smoker. Looking back, I think that I got it about 80% right. But that was one of those bites where I had it. And like with so many bites that I've had since then from so many famous pitmasters, that when I had a bite of that beef rib, it was like fireworks. I was like, wow, I cannot believe I've never had this before. And I know that so many people here have not had that before. And it really, that threw gasoline on the fire where it's like, I got to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I really enjoy about you, besides the amazing cooking, is the fact that you're such a fan of other barbecue pitmasters and you're such a fan of the genre, like you're a student of it.
Absolutely.
So I'd love for you to tell me, since you're coming to it from really a fandom passion project, what do you think makes good barbecue? Just across the board, depending on style and stuff, are there a few things that, depending if it's whole hog or if it's chopped or if it's brisket or if it's Kansas City style, that there is something, oh, this is good?
So I would probably dial it down to technique, that if it's dried out barbecue, if it's been sitting on a buffet line for 5 hours and it's totally dry, that's not good. If it's where a lot of my friends are cooking, where they've paid attention to detail and there's care and love in what they've done, they're paying attention to those details to, not serve you dry barbecue. And so I would really say what's good barbecue is where there's somebody that cares about it, whether it's a known pitmaster or whether it's somebody that's, just a back of the house cook that actually cares about the product.
Mm-hmm.
And, that resonates with what we're trying to do here, is that I've got such an incredible crew of guys who care, and they bought into this vision to make good barbecue, which is what I think is like, you can taste that, hey, effort was put into this.
And the effort includes an even smoke, right?
Yes.
And it includes the meat isn't dried out. So there's definitely still some moisture and some juices, and all of that mixes with the rub and the smoke and stuff. And then it makes something bigger than the sum of its parts. And now I'm pretty hungry. I think I'm going to get some after this, though,
yes.
Southern Fork listeners, because I don't want you to hear my stomach growling. But I do love a bite of barbecue. I feel like at this point, maybe I'm an unofficial member of the barbecue nation. When you decided to set this up and you went from the food truck to a brick and mortar, and now I watch you're opening new avenues for this business all the time. You've got some great craft beers. You're doing hot dogs. Now you're making your own pickles. It's a lot of craft. Is it just because you had all these ideas and you're just ready to implement them all? Or is it that as you do them, more and more are coming? So that's a creative question. So do you have a to-do list that you're checking off?
Yes, all the above. I've got a stadium full of ideas that, having been doing this for 7-8 years, as I've traveled around, hey, that's a good idea. What if I did this? And, I try really hard to just not copy somebody, but to envision it how I would want it and to make it my own. And so the other aspect of this is what you're alluding to. I'm not trying to, at least right now, I'm not trying to sell straight barbecue 7 days a week. We have it on Saturday, but on Sunday we have a very different menu, because I think I've got a lot of tools on the belt, mm-hmm. that I think that we can offer something as good as Saturday on Sunday, but completely different. And what I've described to people is that Saturday, if we've got to kind of give you an analogy, Saturday is James Beard, Sunday is Triple D. And so, we I don't want to say cut some corners on Sunday.
For Southern Fork listeners, in the business, that's known as diners, drive-ins, and dives. Triple D.
Yes. So Saturday is really as scratch as we can go.
Uh-huh.
But Sunday, there's some things that have canned items, like we do have Rotel for an authentic Texas style chili con queso.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love chili con queso. So that's a good example of something you're doing on Sunday. When are the burgers happening? Are they a Sunday thing?
We've experimented doing smoked burgers on Sundays after the rush. The smash burgers
That's the one I saw.
are way more popular.
Yeah.
The problem is me, that I am getting older by the day, and I like to cook the burgers over a 5,000 degree grill, and physically it's very taxing. And so over the last couple of years, we only do 2 to 3 burger services a year, because physically it is, in that little food truck, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But that is hopefully going to be one of the expanded days that we do, to offer something kind of different each day that we're open.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. It's almost like, what was that? That old school cafeteria style, not cafeteria, but like a diner where it's like chicken and dumplings day and
daily special.
Meatloaf, daily specials. Yes. Thank you. So what is one thing that has really surprised you about now that this business is open and running and things are happening and people are noticing and writing articles and awards are coming your way?
The most surprising thing is that I had this vision, and I'll be damned if it's not happening. I mean, it is, I had this idea, what if we figured out how to cook higher quality barbecue and sides, doing it the hard way, and we figured out how to sell it in volume, and people noticed, and that there was an organic growth to the business, and I'll be damned, people started noticing.
Well, and just from my perspective, I mean, I know a lot of food writers have been in now, and I know Daniel Vaughn is Barbecue Snob is in and all that, but to your credit, everybody that was telling me to come and visit were not in my business. They were people that were just getting excited about what you're doing. And that idea of where we are in the culinary landscape, where the idea of authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're thinking, I want to make the pulled pork, the pork barbecue, or the chopped pork of my youth. And then you go to Texas and you're doing that, you're trying to do that. And then you come here and you have Texas. So this city limits is authentic to you.
Mm-hmm.
So then the sky is the limit, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you plan on making it your main hustle?
Absolutely. I am in such an incredibly awesome position right now with the business that we have, that it's just a matter of figuring out what move we're going to make on the chessboard. And with my financial background, I'm sweating over this to make sure that we don't make a mistake, that we make the right move. I'm not going to make all the right moves, but I can think through to reduce the damage of possibly, making not the best move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at right now is,
because you don't have to be open 7 days a week, especially as a post-pandemic restaurant. I think we've gotten back a little bit of quality of life when restaurants know I can close. I don't need to be open 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if you're in a tourist destination like Charleston, or you're in Columbia, South Carolina, or you're in Houston, Texas. You can decide. You don't have to be open.
And I'm fortunate that I don't have to be. Am I going to go full time into it? Yes. I'm blessed that I lose track sometimes what the side hustle is, but I've got multiple side hustles to ensure, just with sheer determination and putting in the hours, that this place has every opportunity to survive.
Right. Now, you are adjacent but involved in the insurance world.
Yes.
Right. So, and that is a very big industry here in Columbia. That is one of the top industries here in Columbia. Aflac is based here, and a lot of other insurance things are happening in the background here. Do you have to wear a tie? Because you're not wearing a tie today.
I used to wear a tie. And when I look at my old headshot, which I look very different, I joke around with my other pitmaster buddies about, that's the type of dude I wanted to go beat up. Not really. I'm not a violent person, but this is such a...
This feels more you?
Oh, absolutely. I was trying to think of a way to describe this, that a lot of us have jobs that we enjoy at least one aspect of it. And in my financial career, I thoroughly enjoyed 80% of what I did, but it was that 20% that always had me looking at side hustles. I've had a lot of side hustles and technically hobbies over the years,
yes.
that there was a chance, but
we call hobby businesses,
yes.
Like, did you have goats and you brought them to yoga classes or, all kinds of things like that?
And, City Limits taps into like literally all of my life experiences, numbers, photography, being creative, serving people. I enjoy doing all those things, and me being in charge of this, I get to dictate how I do that. And
yeah.
Downside, if you're working for somebody, you're kind of limited on what you can do.
So it's creatively rewarding.
Absolutely, yes.
And it's really fun when somebody like me says, I'm sure, because I feel the same way when somebody says, like what you said to me off mic of, I listen to the podcast, and I know, we talked about it. And then I come in, I go, I saw the hot dogs on the Instagram. I'm going to need to eat one of those.
Yes.
So that's got to feel really rewarding, because you're doing these, what I like to call craft projects. And then you're putting them out there and then people are responding. So I have to ask you, and you've done so much in such a short time, but what is making you hungry? What's happening next? Just the next thing that you're thinking about doing. Because you built the smokehouse since I was here last, and there's a lot going on.
As far as the building, I don't know what's next is whatever breaks. So, that is literally how we've survived in this. And if any of the listeners have been here, and any of the future listeners who come here, if you see something that looks like really weird, like, why is that way? It's because there are 10 things more important ahead of it that we are dealing with or we're working on that we just haven't had time. When I came in here, we're coming up on 1 year, May 1st. I've had this for 1 year.
It seems like amazing. That's only been a year.
Yeah. When we started here a year ago, I had a load of dirt dumped, and we were going to put out, 5 or 6 little picnic table pads. And we started moving the dirt, and we got a couple of the pads built. Then stuff started breaking inside, and we have not had time to get back out there to lay out more picnic tables. But, what's driving me? I can't remember what the question was, but what am I looking forward to?
Yeah. What's next?
I am dying to serve breakfast tacos and kolaches.
Please make breakfast tacos, like a real breakfast taco, not a, oh my gosh, it's my favorite thing about Texas. I love Texas food, actually, and I love Texas culture. I go often to visit culinary makers in Texas. And the first thing I do, the first morning I'm there, is get a breakfast taco. There's just nothing like it. So please do those.
I crush kolaches by the half dozen every morning when I'm back in Houston. Breakfast tacos. I eat horrible here. I eat much more worse when I'm in Houston because I'm back, I got easy access to kolaches and the tacos, and that's just for breakfast. And then whenever I'm back in Houston, then I'm at multiple barbecue joints for lunch. And then I figure out a way to go to other restaurants, and I eat horrible when I'm back in Texas. But back to your question, in this little space with our little tight crew, how are we going to pull this off? Because I think that makes sense, because back to what we touched on before, I'm trying to each group of hours that we're open to offer something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea. That's a really cool twist on the whole idea, the whole concept. What is one aspect of this job that you made up for yourself that really meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your natural personality?
Telling two-dimensional stories on Instagram. I am a photographer. I thoroughly enjoy capturing great images. I enjoy light. Photography is one of the natural fits that I was very blessed whenever I got into that made my stuff stand out. And early on, that's how Daniel Vaughn and I met. I went to Camp Brisket in January 2018, I believe, or January 2017.
And you heard that right. There is something called Camp Brisket.
Yes. Texas A&M. And because of my Instagram presence, I see a lot of people, I've been doing this a long time. You can make stuff look really good on a two-dimensional medium. Who knows how well it tastes or not. But I mean, you get a general sense of how good something is, especially if you post a lot of consistent images. And Daniel came over and introduced himself. And I know it's because of, what he saw on Instagram, and like I was blown away. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He knows who I am. And so anyway, cool. The two-dimensional storytelling, I've got so much I want to convey to people. And I thoroughly enjoy getting an idea of an image in my head or seeing an image and then capturing it and fixing that or laying that as the palette for me to tell people what I want to tell them that day.
Right. Your passion is so strong. I mean, anybody that walks in the door just knows that is happening. You're bursting with wanting to talk about barbecue.
Absolutely.
It's really cool. What is one thing keeping you up at night? One thing.
Are people going to show up tomorrow?
Really?
I listened to the Katura podcast.
Nico.
And the pop-up issue, you're hot one day, the next day nobody shows up. I've had, luckily, just a few back in the food truck days, a couple very poor services. And I don't think that I'll ever get comfortable with assuming that there's going to be a huge line of people. I am completely not freaked out, but highly cognizant that I can't just sit on my ass and assume people want to show up. And that's what drives what I do here is I want to connect with people when they come in and eat so that I can secure that second visit and like make a real connection. And I've described to people a couple of times over the last week that it's the best way to understand what I'm talking about is if you go to McDonald's and the person gives you your change, doesn't even look you in the eyes, and they mumble to think you have a good day or whatever. And here we are honestly trying to say, how are you doing? We can't do much for you if you're incurable or whatever, but if you're having a kind of a grumpy day, we're going to do our best to cure you with our hospitality and our food.
All right. I am so thrilled to have met you, to eat your food, and to welcome you to the Southern Fork family of guests. And this is a question I reserved just for them. And it's known as my magic picnic basket question. And with this picnic basket, I don't use it for myself. I should, but I don't. I use it for you. And I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make one more bite of something that you really enjoy. I can source for you and I can cook a little bit. I'd love to put some things in this basket that bring you life. And I know that shifts and changes, and I'm going to guess that maybe kolaches are in that basket. But what are some things that I can put in that basket for you today?
How about my mom's pimento cheese, maybe some of her dumplings, and her red velvet cake, which we learned. My mom passed away before I created City Limits. I didn't have the foresight to get recipes, so all these memories are gone. Other than what's in my head, I can't relive that bite. But the red velvet cake, we did get the recipe. I did learn that it's actually not red velvet cake, but I grew up my whole life thinking that was red velvet cake, and my mom just added red food coloring to a yellow cake.
Oh, so it's not a devil's food cake.
So anyway,
well, she had her own spin on it.
Yes, but pimento cheese, the dumplings, and the cake, I would really that would bring such great warm memories back, and man, I miss that.
Yeah, chicken and dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you want to learn more about Robbie and City Limits BBQ here in West Columbia, South Carolina, you know where to go. Go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as well as images so you can see the face behind the voice. If you like what you hear this season, I'm really asking to share that you like what you hear. So if you love this episode, go ahead and hit that share button and text it to a friend and say, hey, you might want to listen to this when you're stuck in traffic. Or, hey, have you ever been to City Limits? Maybe we should take a road trip and go. But this is such a wonderful community of culinary makers all over the South. And this person actually cooks next to my grocery store. So, it can be right around the block or, on the other side of a plane trip. So thank you so much for taking the time on a Thursday, which I know is a crazy prep day. And I look forward to eating and hanging out again soon.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, it was awesome. Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. I've had the wonderful opportunity to interview many barbecue folks throughout the years, and I notice that a lot of people get started when they're starting out, if they don't come from a barbecue family, with an offset smoker. And you will hear Robbie mention that. I remember that Hector Garate of Palmyra also mentioned it last year in one of the episodes from 2023. So it is a pretty common thing. And I have a lot of you ask me about grills and about smokers. And I probably should just mention that at one point I did have a little gig as a grilling expert for Home Depot. That really was involved with their digital presence online, but it gave me the opportunity to interview a lot of these guys who spend a lot of time with wood and smoke about grilling. As you're getting excited about grilling out this summer, and barbecue is not the same as grilling, but it does involve live fire. So I will tell you, if any of you are really thinking about offset smoking or you're using offset smoking, you'll notice that in this particular episode, I didn't ask Robbie about what kind of wood he uses. And that's really because it's more about technique than what the wood can flavor. So there's a lot of chatter and what I would call consumer chatter from brands who are really trying to push particular wood chips or particular pellets. And those things are fun, and it's great to play with nuances like apple and perhaps hickory, or a lot of pitmasters, including Rodney Scott, use oak. So it's more about the technique, low and slow. And you'll hear Robbie mention multiple times in this episode that he wanted to do it the hard way. And there's just no getting around it. The best live fire cooking, which encompasses a lot of different things, from barbecue to grilling to, working with a spit, involves time and involves technique much more than what kind of wood chips, or if they're soaked in a Tennessee whiskey perhaps, or if they actually, you throw them on the side or you put them in a pan. It's more that you get your basic techniques and then you can play. So take it from me, somebody who, I should also admit, I don't actually own a grill currently, but was at one time a grilling expert, thanks to great interviewing of other people who knew a lot more than I do. So good luck getting out there in your backyard, your side yard, or your patio and firing up an offset smoker or grill. We are turning the corner into prime outdoor cooking season. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?